London 94.9.
Eddie Nestor. No radio police, no political correctness.
All things to talk about here on BBC London 94.9. But now I got some advice, some information for you. It's very important, actually, because I couldn't get my head around what was happening in the news this week, and I want to try and see if we can understand it together. The ANC have once again won the South African elections. Jacob Zuma became the country's third president since free and fair elections in 1994, but the ANC fell just short of a two-thirds majority needed to amend the constitution. It gained 65.9% of the vote. So, is the ANC's popularity in South Africa waning, and what of its new president, Jacob Zuma? My next guest has some of the answers, though I don't think anybody has all of them. Journalist and specialist in African affairs, Ayo Johnson. Good evening to you, Ayo.
Hi, Eddie.
Or morning, as it is now. How are you, sir?
I'm doing quite well, thanks.
Now, it wasn't a resounding victory for the ANC. Why not?
Well, I'd like to differ slightly. It was a sounding victory. Where they fell down was the fact that they didn't actually meet the magic number of two-thirds, majority which we're looking for. Clearly, that was the reason behind that is because they needed to be able to govern and actually change the constitution. And without that majority, that would become impossible. It also shows clearly that the opposition parties, especially that of the COPE, which is the Congress of People, who are newly formed party that came off an offshoot from the ANC themselves late last year, and that of the Democratic Alliance, have actually shown that they can be a party to be reckoned with. They did extremely well in the polls, and in fact, the Democratic Alliance actually won the West Cape of South Africa, which is quite good.
One of the leader columns in the newspapers today says a sad picture of poor Nelson Mandela giving his endorsement to the unlovely new South African, President Jacob Zuma, ought to force Mr. Mandela's simpering and uncritical admirers to reconsider. His favourite song, Pass Me My Machine Gun. In terms of not quite achieving the two-thirds majority, is it anything, do you think, to do with his past?
Absolutely. I tend to call him the comeback kid. I thought his career was over when in 2005 he was sacked by then Thabo Mbeki, who was the president. He was sacked from becoming the deputy leader of the ANC. He fought a bitter feud, publicly that is, with the ANC leader himself, which resulted in Thabo Mbeki losing his job due to a no vote contest from the ANC. And of course, following that, he's had allegations of rape, and more so the fact that when he went to court, he had very ill-judged comments, namely saying that he'd had a shower.
He had unprotected sex, and he went and had a shower to make sure he didn't get AIDS.
Well, apparently the lady in question was known to be a HIV sufferer, and his comments were ill-judged. He also questions his ability to think outside of the box, but more so, he's been surrounded with issues about corruption, which have dogged him for some time, many, many years, and only recently was he found not guilty. So in any circles, Mr. Zuma is indeed the biggest comeback kid of all time, to have survived all of that and still more than likely now to become the president of South Africa. What you've got to keep in mind is that South Africa is a massive powerhouse in the African continent. Clearly, when South Africa sneezes, the rest of Africa catches a cold. They are very, very huge in terms of economical development. They've done extremely well, growing at an average of about 5% over the last many years. But as we know, the economical downturn recently is going to affect them, and of course, they're likely to see a recession. And of course, issues around poverty and inequality is still a massive issue. The problem is that the government has not been able to translate a lot of all these benefits that I've spoken about into real credits that benefit the poor. And the gap between the rich and poor has got that much wider. And of course, there's a lot of South Africans are wishing and hoping that he can reverse that.
Yeah, Zimbabwe, Congo, Sudan and Somalia, just some of the places that he says that he will seek stability for. It's not going to be easy for him, is it?
He has to. He doesn't have a choice. I mean, at the moment, South Africa is a massive magnet for Zimbabweans who are having issues in their country, and more so for Africans across the rest of Africa who would like to go to South Africa for various opportunities. Recently, last year, we saw xenophobia, which became a massive issue, where Zimbabweans were literally killed and some were chased away just for jobs in South Africa. So I'm afraid that South Africa is a magnet, clearly so. The problems that Zuma has are more how does he reconcile with the unions who themselves are concerned for a lot of their workers who would lose their jobs if a lot of the multinationals have their own way in terms of a lot of the actions that are happening on the ground. So I think he's got to negotiate with the unions, and that's where he's going to have very, very serious problems.
Yeah, thank you very much for talking to us. Thank you. We appreciate it very much. Just a little more information about the elections that